Today's retail story really isn't about decline, but about transformation. And we've been in this period of transformation really since 2019, 2020. So, what we're seeing now, e-commerce sales as a percentage of total retail sales are at the same exact level as they were in Q2 of 2020 when we were all locked up and we were, what was it called? Revenge shopping. We were buying everything online that we could because we were so bored and we had nothing else to do. But unlike before, this surge is not a threat to brick and mortar retail as it was in 2020. So it's really proof that omnichannel strategies are thriving. And for so long, e-commerce and brick and mortar were really seen as competitors. But today we now see them as collaborators, I would say. So retailers that really lean into that blend of digital and physical experiences are really poised to lead, not just in this year, but well into the future.
Welcome back to another episode of the Innovate on Purpose podcast, hosted by Matt Muller,
best-selling author of The Mindful Innovator and Rethink Retail's top retail expert.
We help retail leaders find clarity so they can grow their businesses purposefully.
We will uncover mindful tips, innovative solutions, and purposeful leadership advice and strategies that you can apply immediately to your retail innovation.
Are you ready to innovate on purpose?
Hey, before we jump into the episode today, I just wanted to say thank you for hitting the play button. You being here fires me up, and I cannot wait to share with you the insights that are going to make a difference in your business. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and leave a review so I can reach as many retail leaders as possible. They too need to hear this. Okay, let's do it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Innovate on Purpose. Today, we have a really cool episode, one that I've been really just chomping at the bit to get at for a while. I had a chance to meet Nicole Larson, who works at Colliers. She is the manager of retail research, and we have been talking about how can we do a podcast together, how might we collaborate, and kind of just waiting for the next report to come out so we can dive into it. And the report came out a couple weeks ago, and I'm super excited to have Nicole on the on this week's episode to dig into this report. So Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Of course, yeah. Today we're going to be talking about the real retail reality. Say that 10 times fast, which is the name of your report. And I just love it. We're getting down to the real of retail. And one of the main topics we're going to be discussing is, why store closures right now are signaling a healthy future. I think it's a really cool topic because usually when you think about store closures, it's like doom and gloom and the retail industry is dying. We know that's not the case, but it's just so cool to hear how those closures might be signaling that there's actually something really big coming for retail. So Nicole,
I love the title, Real Retail Reality, but it is a little bit of a tongue twister.
That's what I love about it too. So Nicole, before we dig into the report, can you just give us a brief overview of who Nicole is and what you do for Colliers and how Colliers is a huge partner to retail?
Yeah, so I'm Nicole Larson. I'm based in South Florida. I am our head of retail research for the US. So I work with a lot of different retailers, who are looking to expand across the country. I work with a lot of our brokers. We have about over 500 retail brokers here at Colliers. I work with all of our researchers across the country too, to make sure that they're able to support their retail brokers as well. So it's really exciting. One of my favorite things to do, when people say, what are your hobbies? People will say, I love to go jogging, or I love to read, I love to cook. And I say I like to go shopping because that really is my passion. I just love to go to the stores, see what's new, see the new experiences, look at the merchandising, look at the operations. Like those things really bring joy to my life. So it's such a fun job that I have. And even on the weekends when I'm at the malls or at the centers, I say I'm working. I say I'm doing retail research while I'm shopping. So it's a good gig.
Yes, a very good excuse to have to go to the stores. Hey, it's part of the job. And I think in Florida we have some of the best locations out here. The outdoor malls, it's just they're always like a cool vibe, much different. Grew up in the Northeast, so I know like what those kind of malls are like, and it's a different vibe in Florida. So those
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
experiences. Yeah. So I guess the first place I'd like to start off with this report is, like what really caught my attention was the physical store piece of it, and it still makes up 70%, 76% of our sales. And retail space right now, the vacancy rate that you guys put in the report is 4.2%, which is pretty low, which I think signals that, retail brick and mortar is definitely not dead. But can you help us understand what these numbers really mean for retail? Like can we dig a little bit deeper on?
Yeah, so today's retail story really isn't about decline, but about transformation. And we've been in this period of transformation really since 2019, 2020. So what we're seeing now, e-commerce sales as a percentage of total retail sales are at the same exact level as they were in Q2 of 2020 when we were all locked up and we were, what was it called? Revenge shopping. We were buying everything online that we could because we were so bored and we had nothing else to do. But unlike before, this surge is not a threat to brick and mortar retail as it was in 2020. So it's really proof that omnichannel strategies are thriving. And for so long, e-commerce and brick and mortar were really seen as competitors. But today we now see them as collaborators, I would say. So retailers that really lean into that blend of digital and physical experiences are really poised to lead, not just in this year, but well into the future.
Yeah, I love how you even started it off where it's about transformation, right? That's kind of where we're going right now, and seeing that omni-channel experience and bringing it all together is so important. But with the vacancy rate like so like low, like 4.2%, I feel like that's pretty low, especially when you're hearing like in the news every day, that there's retailers closing, like Party City, which just announced like their closure a few months ago. Right now with the vacancy rates, why is that so significant? The low vacancy rates.
Yeah, we're at a historical low right now. I think the lowest we got to was 4.1, so we're at 4.2 now, so 10 basis points up. But I wouldn't say that's too scary of an indicator to be up 10 basis points. But really, the big story here is the lack of quality retail space continues to support strong fundamentals within the retail industry. So despite all of these increasing closures that you're hearing about, there's a little bit of softening demand, like I said, that increase of 10 basis points in the vacancy rate. Most vacant locations have backfilled very quickly. In fact, vacancies are filling at the fastest pace in nearly 15 years. So that's obviously a great indicator. And it's reflecting really intense competition for some of these Class A locations. I would also say, too, that in 2024, the median time to lease dropped to just 7.5 months. So that's really highlighting urgency among retailers to get locked into, the best in class, well-positioned footprints as soon as they become available.
That's amazing. Yeah, there is a lot of competition for space, and that kind of goes up to like to the next piece that we wanted to talk about today, which is like that we're seeing like that 5,000 of the new store openings are coming from international brands like Gucci and others. Like, what's driving the international interest in the U.S. retail space?
Yeah, so between 2018 and 2023, 25% of new store openings came from international brands. And I think the reasoning behind this was because there's really strong confidence in the US consumer. Sometimes we're in our own head here and we're like, oh, the inflation is high, the prices are high. But to the outside point of view, we have a really strong consumer here in our country. And so these international brands see this as long-term potential for growth. And, really, though the US is currently in a space crunch for retail space, we still have more retail space per capita than any other country in the world. So I think other brands from Asia, Europe, they see the US as a great place to invest because we just do have more opportunities for space. Even though we see it as a negative, others are seeing it as a great place to expand.
Yeah, you forget to look at the other perspective of what is it like in other countries, and yeah, it seems like retail is kind of feels like it's shrinking a little bit because of all the news that we hear in the media of what they're saying about store closures. But yeah, it's interesting to understand that we have that much retail space that's out there, a lot abundance of retail space compared to other markets. Can you like also kind of just expand on like what's happening like with these like store footprints? Like, so we think about Party City closing down, maybe the international brands taking it over. Like, how are these spaces being repurposed? Is it just put a sign up and fill your product, or are these spaces being reinvented?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a mix of both. If it's a Class A space, it's probably getting gobbled up very quickly. We're working with some brands now that we're telling them, hey, if you're trying to open up a store, we need to start looking now. And this will be probably for opening towards end of 2026, maybe beginning of 2027. So like I said, it's very competitive, but on the flip side of that, a lot of these vacant spaces that maybe are Class B and Class C, we're actually starting to see them become repurposed for either health and wellness concepts. So whether that's a gym, a med spa, any sort of like medical retail type of center, we're seeing that. And another one we're seeing too is there's a huge surge again in entertainment. So escape rooms, arcades. I don't know if you've actually seen this, but there's a huge interest now in like these claw machine stores, or like the ones where you put the coin in and you flip it like you used to see back at the bowling alleys or the grocery store. But it's just a full store full of these machines. It requires, one employee to be there just to make sure that the machines are up and running. You get your quarters from a machine and you just sort of self-serve and play the games yourself. So I know those claw machine stores are all the rage and coming soon to the US. So definitely expect to see more of those.
Oh, that's awesome. I did see one in a mall local to me. So yeah, so it's really cool to see those spaces like, What's going on here?" But really cool,
Yeah.
entertaining, and also interesting how we're looking at retail too, as like looking at like the med spas. And, like, those are retail stores and they are popping up a lot more. So it's like it's those experiences, whether it's, on the fun entertainment side or the well-being side. At the end of the day, it's about getting more done than just picking up a product.
Absolutely. And what
Yeah.
we're seeing too is on the food and beverage side, I still think the service sector is doing a lot well, or excuse me, I do believe that the services sector is doing a lot better than the good side of it. So that's why you're seeing a lot of these like, health and wellness concepts come to life more, entertainment. You're not seeing as much food and beverage expand as much as those. But I will say what we're seeing our US consumer now is they are trading down. So if there, for example, is an outing and they're saying, oh, it used to be let's go out to eat and then let's go to the movies or let's go somewhere and grab food afterwards. So these consumers are actually saying, no, it's either going to be one or the other now. Either we're only going out to eat or we're only going to the movies. So the consumers are becoming more selective with their services as well.
Oh, wow, it's really interesting to think about where it's about like where am I going to get the best bang for my buck? What do I really need to get like do just to keep myself entertained and have fun, but also like what can I eliminate to help that budget piece of it, which is so important right now. Yeah. Now, when we think about like the evolution of the physical space, like one of the things that really stood out to me in the report was that physical stores, like 3% of them now are handling online order fulfillment, which is really interesting to think about because when you think about omni-channel or online purchases, it's you order and it comes to your house, but the fulfillment in store is becoming so much bigger. Tell me a little bit more about that piece of it.
Yeah, so I mean, retailers really have had to become more nimble and creative when it comes to their physical space. For example, what we're seeing now is you may have a retailer who's just dying to be located in a specific center, but the size available might not necessarily fit their typical store prototype. So in that case, we're actually seeing retailers willing to shift their typical store size and format to fit to that center because they know it's a well-trafficked area. They know the consumer spends a good amount of dollars there every year, and they're not willing to wait another 10 years to seize the opportunity to be located there. So we're seeing a lot of these retailers sort of come up with new store formats, whether it's larger or smaller, to fit into the property that they are just dying to be located in.
Yeah, that's huge. I was working with a QSR restaurant recently, and we were going on to in-store eat-alongs with consumers, and some of the shoppers chose to actually order it online so they can pick it up. and just bring it home. And went to a brand new location. They just opened up probably about 3, 4 weeks ago. And we get into the store and there is no pickup station. And it was just like the customer was like just almost like lost it. Like, do I have to wait online like to get my online order that I just ordered, or how does this work? So it was so much confusion and chaos going into that store without having that pickup station there. So it's like a little bit different than thinking about like apparel retail, like retail, this like QSR, and there needs to be, you have to think about what is that pickup experience like, and it's a completely different journey. And I think it's one that retailers, even in new locations, aren't really thinking about, but they do need to be thinking about that. Yeah. So how are like successful retailers balancing their online and offline presence?
So I think since 2020, retailers have learned that brick and mortar isn't only about doing transactions. And this is something I've been seeing a lot more in the past, probably, I would say 12 to 18 months. We're hearing from a lot of retailers. We're actually speaking to one now who says, I want to do a pop-up and I don't want to sell anything. It's simply just for marketing purposes. Yeah, so there's really this strong influence now on the online as well. And so I think successful retailers today are offering consumers experiences, like I said, offering them convenience and really blending the digital channels to create a more powerful omni-channel ecosystem.
I love that. Yeah, like using the pop-up as that marketing piece is so important. Like I tried doing a couple of those pop-ups back when I was running an innovation team in a CPG company, and it was always hard to find like that break even of like, selling enough for a pop-up to make it worthwhile. But I think, going into the point of like, hey, the pop-up is actually, it's for marketing, and then we're going to capture the sales off of the brand awareness that we're creating at those events is such a very important strategy, and one that I think allows brands to really say, hey, yeah, let's do a pop-up, because it's they're not expected to have the results from the pop-up as far as sales is concerned. So changing
Hmm.
those up, so important.
The sales, the money will come later.
Exactly. Yes. All right. So let's go down to like consumer behavior and trends now. So the data is showing consumers are growing frustrated with that online delivery and return charges. That really stood out to me. So like, how is that affecting consumer shopping behavior?
So, I mean, we as consumers, I think of myself and everyone else I know, we love the free shipping, we love the free returns, right? But this is becoming a major cost burden for the retailers. I mean, I've even heard examples from some of my colleagues at Colliers saying, I reached out to Wayfair, there was a broken leg on a table I got, and Wayfair said, just keep the table and we'll send you a new one because it's too expensive for us to ship that table back. And I was like, mind blown. That's that's
Right.
insane. And I think a lot of these online brands, Amazon, for example, I think they've really spoiled us into making the delivery and return process so easy. But not every retailer has the infrastructure to replicate that. So I think you're going to see shoppers starting to gravitate more towards brick and mortar stores and omni-channel offers that offer greater flexibility and lower return costs. I mean, if you go to Whole Foods, there is always a line now for those Amazon returns. So I think that says a lot, and it shows how consumers feel more comfortable with returning their items, with returning their online items in stores.
Yeah, it is, I think helpful. Like when I do, like I have an Amazon return and I go to the UPS store, it's nice to be able to just walk in, hand them the package or hand them the product, not even a package, and they just
Hmm.
take care of the whole thing. So it's you're trying to like reduce that friction. So yeah, so if you're putting the consumer completely in charge of returning that product, it could definitely be a challenge. What strategies are retailers like using to capitalize on this shift?
I would say it's just that, like omni-channel, the greater flexibility. I mean, you're starting to see that retailers are now working with these distribution companies or shipping companies. I can't remember one exactly, but a lot of these brands that you wouldn't think the return process is as easy as it should be. There are some other brands that you're like, wow, I'm actually surprised you are charging for me to return. So I think there's still a lot of confusion within the industry as in regards to that. Obviously, it's mainly apparel retailers. There's even some Some retail brands I've seen that they say, well, you bought this product online and you can only return to this specific type of store that we have. You can't return it to an outlet if it was purchased online. So there still is a lot of confusion. So I think again, it just shows consumers want to have that flexibility to return in store, and retailers really need to work on making that process very easy and frictionless, like you mentioned.
Yeah, yeah. So if I guess if you had advice for a retailer, it probably should be to really think about that journey as a consumer. Put your feet like put your feet in their shoes, right? And really understand like what is it like to return a product for you with your brand in all different kinds of situations, because it should be a seamless process and one that's not a surprise. Like that would be horrible. Like you have to return something and all of a sudden you find out that you're going to get charged for it. That should have been upfront this way. At least you knew about that ahead of time.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And are there any other trends that we should be like looking out for in the next 12 to 18 months within the space of consumer behavior?
Yeah, so our recording comes at a perfect time because I am just 1 week post ICSC Vegas, which everyone calls, the Super Bowl of retail real estate. So there were really three trends that came up to mind for me for what retailers should be looking for in the next 12 to 18 months. So I would say the first one is that brands are closing underperforming stores while still actively pursuing long-term growth. So this is what's really driving that strong leasing momentum in a tight market, especially with limited new development. I would say the second one is experience and convenience are key for the consumer. And this is what we've been talking about this whole entire time. Concepts that are blending, interactivity, wellness, digital convenience, they're really resonating, especially with Gen Z. Gen Z was a really big topic at ICSC as well. And everyone was like, are you guys ready for Gen Z? They're here, they're ready to spend their money. And a lot of the brands and landlords were like, we don't know if we're ready yet. So I think, this new generation, Gen Z, is going to also challenge the retailers and the landlords to sort of step up their game to keep their consumers at their centers. And then I would say number three is data-driven strategy really matters. So site selection has become even more competitive, even more strategic than it ever has been before. There's a lot of redevelopment of existing spaces, repurposing of existing spaces. And then now we're also competing with international brands coming into the US. So it's becoming really competitive, and consumers are adapting to these macroeconomic shifts that are happening every single day here in the United States. And retailers need to keep up with that as well.
Yeah, so much data out there to be had, and to really understand and kind of synthesize. I'm working with a an AI brand right now. It's called Nextlytics, and they focus in on taking all the data that's out there and really synthesizing it to really laser focused insights that are going to drive a difference in the business. In fact, we had a call recently with a brand that has retail outlets, and they want to know like where's the best place to open up a store, where I'm going to have the best the best revenue and best locations, and looking at like their demographic data and understanding what segments are going to hit best. Like we're able to kind of put all those insights together to really create like, hey, this is where your top three markets would be. Here's where you should really be opening up. But there's just so much data out there that we can't humanly dive into it and really synthesize that. We need the help of machine learning, and it's out there now. So leveraging that data can be so powerful for retailers.
You got to connect me with that platform. I want to learn more about them.
But definitely, yeah, I'll definitely make a connection there. Really, really amazing, brilliant group over there. And I also love like this Gen Z, like they're here, they have the money, they're ready to engage. And are we ready for them? That's a really provocative question. I'm super excited about the Gen Z generation coming in, because it seems like it's going to be a lot more entertaining, a lot more fun, and engaging experiences in the store. Like they you know, are in the phase of TikTok, right? They're the TikTok generation where they're always constantly scrolling. They need to have something fresh. They want something quick. They want something new. They want something that's funny. Just having a good time, right? So I feel like our
Hmm.
stores need to go down that path, and I'm down for a good time. So it sounds like it's going to be really cool to see what happens in our stores.
Gen Z really should have been called Generation TikTok, but it came out too late.
I know, right? Yeah, maybe we could submit a rebranding for Gen Z. So I want to finish this off on a future outlook. And in the report, we talk about Hotel Chocolat. And it's fascinating to see. how new retailers are reimagining what a store can be. Like, what makes concepts like Hotel Chocolat successful in today's market? Can you tell me a little bit more about?
Yeah, so Hotel Chocolat is a new brand that we're working with in the US. They're very established in Europe. But what their success really lies, I would say, is in their strategic flexibility. So, like I said, they're very well known for their UK locations, and a lot of their locations in the UK are near transportation hubs. Now, obviously, that does not translate when you come to the US because we just don't have very strong transportation hubs. They also have a very strong e-commerce platform. So they've really approached the US market with thoughtful adaptation, I think would be the best way to say it. So they really understand that their US consumer is going to be completely different than who their core consumer is in the UK. And also more than just being a chocolate retailer, they actually have a farm to store model. So they actually have a farm in St. Lucia where they grow the cacao. And from that farm, that's actually shaped everything from their store design to product development. So it's been a really cool experience. They actually have a documentary coming out in a few weeks about their new store opening, their first store opening in the US that we did in Chicago. So that's really exciting. Yeah. So it's just been really amazing to see, sort of their whole ecosystem where it literally comes from farm to store and how they blend that with the e-commerce and how they blend it with entertainment and experience.
Yeah, it's an amazing brand, and I can't wait to see them start popping up here more in the US. And I can't wait to get to Chicago. And I'm going to have to drop the link to that documentary too into the show notes here so people could check it out when it comes out. So
Yeah,
can't
for
wait to see
sure.
that. But yeah, yeah, really, really amazing brand and really cool story. I love how they're translating the St. Lucia farm into stores and keeping that alive. I think that's so important that we bring those like nuances of our brand into the store, and it's not just four walls with chocolate bars inside of it, right? It's like how do you tell the story? How do you really immerse your consumers in your brand? It's so important. So really cool to see that they're doing that. What other advice would you have for retailers that are looking to expand their physical presence?
I would say if you're looking to expand, just give us a call here at Colliers. No, just kidding. Shameless plug. But I mean, in reality, if you are a retailer looking to expand your physical presence here in the United States, look for a partner that is going to be just excited about your brand as you are. At the end of the day, these brands are driving influence across consumers, and it's important that they're located in best in class areas that really provide them with the best opportunities to succeed. I think that's what I love so much about my job is I get to work with brands that are just so exciting. Their owners and CEOs are also so passionate about their brands, and it just makes us want to help them and makes us want to do the best job that we can for them because we see the passion and we see the excitement there. I think honestly that is the best key to success is finding a partner that is just as invested in your brand as you are, and that it's like I said earlier, it's not
Yeah.
always only about the transaction, but it's really about that partnership and that experience.
Definitely, it's all about the partnership. It's all about having passion too, and I think that's really important too. Like we're talking about these international brands coming over into the U.S. Like it's a different market. Like you talked about Hotel Chocolat. Like there's no transportation hubs. Like you can't put a Hotel Chocolat in the middle of Ohio.
Yeah.
There's just no transportation hub there. Where are you? Like you just need to have someone that has the knowledge of the space and the market and the consumer, because there are going to be different things that are happening here versus internationally. So you need to have that partner that's going to know the market thoroughly, and Colliers absolutely is that partner for you guys. So it's Nicole, this has been awesome. Anything else you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up today?
I think I'm just really excited for the future of physical retail. I think AI is really going to help transform the store experience rapidly. I think just technology and social media in general is really going to shape the in-store experience. And I'm really excited for that. One example, what was really interesting is when Party City announced their store closures, there were retailers who found successful bids within that lease auction. A few of the names that really surprised me was Barnes& and Noble and Books A Million. And I really think that is due to hashtag book talk. So social media is obviously playing a big role in their expansion. expansion. And then Cavenders, which is a Western wear company, I really think that's all due to Beyonce and her Cowboy Carter influence into the
Yes.
Western wear expansion. So you're starting to see pop culture, social media really drive the brick and mortar expansion.
That is so refreshing to hear, and that they're not going to be all just spirit stores for
Yeah.
Halloween. So, but and it's so cool that how you can look at TikTok and then point to, oh, okay, that's why this is happening. And yes, I do. I think you're right, Nicole. Beyonce has definitely probably influenced those Western stores. So it's a very interesting insight right there. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for being on the show today. There were so many great insights, a lot of great takeaways. I am so glad that retail is not dying, and it's actually thriving right now. So really cool to see how much competition is out there, how the market is moving. And I am so excited to see what the future of retail holds for us, because these new stores are really cool. So Nicole, thank you so much for being on today. On the show notes, you'll see Nicole's link there, a link to Collier's, a link to this report. Check out the report. It is so in depth. And how often do you guys do a report so people can check back in and make sure that they grab the next one as well?
Yeah, so we do a spring, fall, and winter report. So those are usually, in May in time for ICSC Vegas, one right in time before ICSC New York, and then we do one right as everyone's going, back to school around Labor Day time area. But we tend to just write trend reports. We're not talking so much about this is the rental rate for the US, this is the absorption. We really like to talk about the reality of the industry. What are the things that are affecting the landlords and the retailers and the consumers? So that's what's really important to us, that we keep our pulse on that.
Yeah, the real retail reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Nicole, thanks so much again for coming on the show today, and look forward to continuing the conversation and checking out the report more. Thank you today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
We have made it to the end of another episode. Thank you for tuning in. A couple of things before you go. If you have found value in this episode, I am sure you'll find value in what we have coming up. So please subscribe so you will have access and know when we launch the next episode. Also, leave a review. The more reviews we have, the further our reach becomes, and I truly want this to be heard by as many leaders as possible. Don't hog this all for yourself. I would love to hear your insights on this topic, so meet me on social media at Matt Muller Innovation on LinkedIn and Instagram. And lastly, if you want to learn more about my story and what I can do for you and your company, go to themindfulinnovator.com. I would love to help you innovate on purpose. Until next time, just remember, bring a level of awareness to each conversation, each observation, each moment, and you can create great change in this world. Thank you.